Hi, this is Mike Lipkin, author of You Belong Here, and I'm here with my co-author, Dr. Diane McIntosh, and we are going to talk to you today about the vital ingredient to certainty and leadership, which is creating your own predictability in highly unpredictable times. And just as we were about to start this conversation, I noticed that Diane had what I thought was a new watch, but frankly, it is a watch she's had, but she's got a new strap. And then she showed me her watch face. And Diane, just talk to us about the role that your watch and your watch face plays in getting you into an upstate. Let's just kick off this conversation with that little soupçon of insight.
Soupçon. Well, thank you so much for pointing out my vanity there, Mike, that I have lots of watch straps, so I change them because I find, depending on what I'm wearing that day, I enjoy those little things, as silly as it is. But even better, right now, Snoopy is actually dancing to it's a disco thing he's doing. So I have on my watch face, and many people have probably heard about this, Snoopy is part of the Apple Watch thing. And for some reason, every time I move my arm, he wakes up and does something silly like make a pizza. It just brings me a moment of joy. Whatever I'm in, if I have a look and I see what he's up to, it just lightens my mood for a moment. And I look for that all day long. I'm working at home. If I see my cat, he's rolled up in front of the fireplace. Oh, those little bits of joy that happen through the day, because I'm in a little bit of a pressure cooker. So I look for those things that bring me a little bit, lift my mood, lift my spirits, even for a moment.
Very good. So, I had a mentor, Diane, who once said to me that leaders bring the weather. And so I always want to be someone in the conversation, irrespective of what chaos is swirling around us. I want to be someone that lifts other people's spirits up, no matter what I was going through just prior to that conversation, just like this one. So look, in the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about ways to create your own predictability. And Diane, talk to us about human beings' need for certainty in the face of heightened uncertainty.
Well, I think uncertainty is destabilizing. And so we're always trying to find patterns, ways of making things make sense to us. Our brains naturally simplify all situations and try to get down to the basics that we can understand, that they're digestible. And so if you're living in chaos and so many things are happening at once, this is really a recipe for heightening anxiety. And, we've talked a lot over the years, Mike, about the impact of the pandemic and the kind of stress that is uniquely awful about that pandemic. And that kind of stress, which is really bad for your health, is the fact that it's chronic and it's uncertain. It's unpredictable stress. We never knew what was going to happen. We didn't know where it started, why it was happening, who was going to get sick, were we going to get treatment, who might have it. It was the real recipe for causing a huge amount of anxiety. Well, that if we look not just at the pandemic, but in everyday life, if you've got too much uncertainty, all it does is fuel anxiety. And when you're anxious, your brain does not work as well as it would normally.
Yeah. And, we're living in times where it's not just a black swan that we encounter, it's flocks of black swans that encounter us on a daily basis. And so, one of the things that has occurred to me, Diane, over the past 18 months, and I want to thank you a lot for this, is that I feel that no matter what comes at me, I can now deal with. And I've proven it over the past 18 months, just like you, just like everyone watching or listening to us. I've had to deal with unprecedented challenges, and yet somehow I've got through them. I've got through them well. And I'm privileged and delighted to say that I actually think I'm in a better place now than I was in May 20 prior to COVID. So if nothing else, COVID has expanded my capacity to handle unpredictability and predict that I'm going to handle whatever comes at me. And then what I find, Diane, is that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I've got a mantra that says, plan like a pessimist, but dream like an optimist. So I'm doing everything I can to prepare for the unpredictability, but I just know that whatever happens, I will prevail. And certainly having these conversations with you along the way, writing this book together has made a huge difference. So just talk to me a little bit, Diane, about just the power of believing that you can handle whatever comes at you, because that, in fact, is the first step of 5 ways to create your own predictability that we have outlined in our book. And the first step is believe in your ability to surmount any difficulty. Talk to me about the power of belief.
Well, what you just described, Mike, really is the essence of resilience. Getting it, resilience isn't just surviving a difficult time, it's actually surviving and growing in a difficult time. And the more resilient you are, the more resilient you become.
Yes.
And you can learn to be resilient, as I just described. The more you are, the more you become. But you can also teach resilience. You can model resilience. This is how, as a parent, the best parents support their child's resilience, which means you have to go through difficult times. There are
Yes.
2 reasons for that. Going through difficult times helps you to see that you can surmount those difficulties. But also, if you don't know what it's like to have pain, then you don't truly appreciate what it's like not to have pain. This allows you to really appreciate the life's experiences, and also to reflect with gratitude when things are good, when you are forced every day. And I do this to myself, and when I'm feeling in the pit, I think, okay, what am I grateful for? And it could be something as ridiculous as, I saw my cat do something silly, or my daughter is, just finished university, whatever it is, little things, big things that help to sustain me. If And I am like you, Mike, I believe that I can get through anything, but that doesn't mean that I'm always, and you know this well, always in a great mood around all the chaos I'm going through. But at my core, I know I can make it through this. I have to
Yes.
calm myself down. I have to center myself. I have to remove some of the noise that's around and focus and determine what's first, what's the path, who do I need to have in this path with me, who do I need to remove for right now. And if I can get that down to a less noise, I know that I can overcome anything.
Love that. Love that. So let's go to the next step, which is accept that you might need to endure temporary confusion or uncertainty. And so, along with the need for certainty and the need to have a line of sight to the solution, oftentimes we're going to have to go through what von Clausewitz called the fog of war, where there isn't an immediate solution that is directly in front of you. And so one then has to apply patience and urgency in equal measure. So you continually to push forward, but you don't become frustrated when the solution doesn't immediately present itself to you, knowing that if you keep thinking, if you keep talking, if you keep on endeavoring to find the solution, it will come. As someone once said to me, as you walk along the path looking for the solution's walking along the path looking for you. So, Diane, just share with me a little bit about how the brain works in terms of the prefrontal cortex, in terms of executive decision making, and how you need to give it time to resolve some of these issues, especially as you're going through this period of momentary confusion or chaos.
I'd probably start with the fact that we all go through chaos sometimes. We all have anxiety at times. And I don't think we'll dig into good anxiety and bad anxiety, but the thing is, we all face stress sometimes, and that is a human condition. And if you're at a time where the stress is extremely high, this is why I said I try to center myself. I really try to use mindfulness techniques. And this is a really important one in helping to remove some of the noise. Is first of all accepting, yeah, this sucks. This is a bad time. I'm under a lot of stress right now. That is acknowledging the fact that it is not a good time, not pretending it's not there, but just acknowledging it. And I like to, somebody told me this years ago when they were describing mindfulness, is letting those worries in the front door and out the back door, but not serving them tea. And what that means is you acknowledge them, you let them sit inside you for a moment, and you let them flow through you. I have them, they're there. Now I have to switch my brain to solution focus. Not serving them tea means you don't spend all your time focused on them, letting them sit inside you, going down these rabbit holes of worry, useless time. So
Yeah,
what you want to be, and this is, I think, a leadership superpower is, yep, that bad. I'm not happy. And then, okay, let's focus on what are the solutions. I've
yeah,
let the upset out the back door. I'm not serving it any tea. It's not hanging out inside me. Let's get to solution. What you were talking about, Mike, was around the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the executive of your brain, organizing, planning, forward thinking. Executive means that you're critically thinking, what could happen if I do this? And if you are reacting out of anxiety, out of fear, out of chaos, your prefrontal cortex will not be fully engaged. So you may make impulsive decisions. Interestingly, that prefrontal cortex is not fully formed till you're about 25 years old. Sometimes it never fully forms. Sometimes you're 13 and you've got a fully formed prefrontal cortex. This is what parenting does. It is your prefrontal cortex. Your parents are until yours is fully developed. And you have to tell kids things over and over and over and over again, and they still don't seem to hear because they're not thinking ahead. They're not forward thinking because that part of their brain isn't working. It's the same thing that happens if you react impulsively under stress in the midst of chaos. You're not getting the full benefit of your prefrontal cortex, and that's when you make bad decisions.
got it. So, the key realization that I've made here is that sometimes it's okay not to be okay. And
Absolutely.
just to live with that, knowing that if you stay focused, the answer will present itself to you. And my core belief now comes from a great quote. I think it's from Oliver Wendell Holmes when he said, "What lies behind me and what lies in front of me are tiny matters compared to what lies within me." So external challenges bring out the internal solutions.
You are the quote king. I just got to say that, Mike. Man, you just like, I don't know where
Well,
you get this.
Well, it's a great gift, Diane. A, because I've got a lifetime of reading, but somehow in the moment I've always got a
You do.
aphorism that seems appropriate.
Yeah.
So let's go to number 3 here, and this is commit to finding new mental models to master the new realities. So a mental model, as you've coached me, Diane, is a way of making sense of the world. And as the world changes, your way of making sense of the world needs to change. So in the book, we have an example of a constraining mental model, and then we have an example of what we brand as a liberating mental model. And Diane, an example of a constraining mental model, and I'll just read this, is if you're a doctor, thinking about your patient as follows. I'm a doctor and I don't believe that my patients can understand or cope with medical information, so I decide what to share with them and I don't share what I know they cannot handle. So that would be, a traditional, I know you don't know a doctor and their patient. Now, Diane, maybe walk us through, and we actually write about this on page 147, what a liberating mental model would sound like.
So, just to take that mental model a little bit further before I do, mental models are, as you said, they're how we understand the world. And it could be your own mental models or a system mental model. And what you just described as in the medical world, they have we have firm mental models of how things are done. Medicine changes in some ways at a glacial pace, and what describing your patients as unable to understand, not having the ability to have access to their own medical information is this typical paternalistic, sorry men, I don't old mental model of how we need to parent. It should be parentalistic, I think.
Yeah.
You can't handle the truth kind of thing. And
Yes.
what the thing before I go to what would be liberating, which I think most people could guess, is mental models are meant to be broken. You have to, in order to progress in the world, you have to constantly make sure that you're thinking about, am I looking at this with a wide enough lens? Because what happens is if people keep running into problems and they constantly confront these mental models and nothing changes, people give up hope.
Yeah.
So you have to, in a system and in yourself, if it's causing crisis for you, if it's causing problems in relationships, in your leadership, in any system, as mental models eventually always do, if you don't take the time to look at why am I here again? Why is this still happening? Then you will become frustrated and give up. So the way that me as a physician, and I think most mental models have changed, is more towards the patient being in the center of all the decisions. So I view myself, and I've always said this to my patients, I am your navigator. You drive the ship. I am a very educated navigator. That's why you've come to me. So I can tell you all of these different options, but ultimately the decision to take medication, to engage in any kind of treatment, all of that goes back to you. And more provinces across Canada are allowing patients to have full access to all their medical information, because actually the patient owns that. It is about them. And that mental model has been really, really tough and slow to confront and change.
Beautiful. So my version of a changing mental model is very simple, Diane. 5 years ago, I believed I can do this all by myself. Now my mental model is I need to partner with outstanding individuals in order to master this. I cannot do it by myself. And I got to tell you, this is a more effective way to live, but even more important, it's a happier way to live. And that's
Enriching.
why you and I are having this conversation. So let's go
Exactly.
to the fourth step. And, really, I've just segued into it. And that is find people to support you through crises. And so now when I meet people, Diane, I've got a filter in my mind. And that is, would I want this person in my foxhole? Would I want this person with me in a crisis moment? And you and I, over the past 18 months, have navigated or helped each other navigate our way through crises. So I think this conversation is proof of the fact that we are finding people to support us through crises. But Diane, maybe from a psychiatrist standpoint, talk to me about the importance of social support and the importance of knowing you've got someone with you who has got your back, as it were.
So there's two things that I really want to very quickly pull out here. One is social support. Thank you, Mike. It is the greatest protector of our mental health. Period. So having those people around you that have your back, that care about you, that put you first, that you have their back, that creating that ecosystem. And it could be one person, it could be a little group of people. Animals actually fit into that as well. So the individuals, the beings around you, the animals around you, that make you know that you have some safety in those individuals. And that does not have to be someone in your family. It could be a friend. When I talk to patients, I say, who supports you? Who's your biggest supporter? Because I'd like them to be part of this, even just once, if you're willing, because then they know what we're doing, and you have someone else who can add in the support. The reason this is important, and the part two of this is, I was talking to a patient yesterday about having a narcissistic parent. And this is a very, very challenging way to grow up, is having a parent who lives through you. Everything you do is a reflection of them, so you can never do anything right. And that is, in its essence, trying to be parented by a narcissist. And so many people that I've seen in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 80s, who have spent their entire life trying to be loved by a narcissistic parent who is incapable of loving them as a child should be loved. And the reason I'm making this point is, just because someone is in your life, just because someone is in your family, does not mean they deserve to be. And that is a very hard decision to make. I can't have this person in my life anymore because they are hurting me. And
Yeah.
if they absolutely must be in my life, I am going to set down very clear boundaries, and I'm not going to let them in, because if I let them inside, they are going to wreak havoc. They've done it forever. So I'm not going to do that. And that's a little bit of that adult autonomy to decide that person is not safe for me. They're not in my foxhole. They don't have my back, and I'm not going to let them undermine my security any longer.
Beautiful. So, in other words, be very prudent, be very cautious about who you allow into your inner sanctum to help you manage and navigate your way through those crises.
And confront those mental models that say, but they're my family member, they're my mother, they're my father, they're my sister, they're my brother. you know what? You got to earn a place in someone's life. We're very busy. And if someone is spending time, taking my time away from my kids or my husband or whatever brings me joy, they better bring me joy and I better bring them joy. And if they're not, I don't have time for that. And so I'm going to create boundaries around it to make sure that I don't let them into my inner sanctum.
Love it. So the final step then is when the rubber meets the road, which is build your strategy and then take action. So 18 months ago, I knew that I had to find a new topic, one that was highly relevant to the trends that people would respond strongly to. And we landed on this theme of you belong here, making it safe for people, not just to feel safe, but to do great things. So that was my strategy. And then my action was to find someone who's a preeminent authority in the field. And that would be you, Diane. And then together we created this book, You Belong Here. So that's my illustration of build a strategy and then take action on it, because ultimately nothing happens until you do something. So Diane, just your final thoughts around this fifth and crucial step of building your strategy and then taking action.
Yeah. We tend to get caught in the tactics. Well, I'll do this and this and this and this. All of that's useless without a strategic plan. Where do I want to go? And making that plan about where you want to go, then you plan on how I'm going to get there. You build yourself a roadmap, and the tactics are easy. I got to do this and this and this and this. But if you don't actually know where it is you want to end up, what that's going to look like, and that takes time. You gotta play out all the different options, use your prefrontal cortex and think, what would what do I have to do to get there? And is this the right place to go? But once you've developed, what is the strategy? What do you want to get to? Where do you want to end up? Then creating the step-by-step way and building tactics on each, that is the path. If otherwise you're just walking in the woods, you don't know where you're going to end up. Finding that path is the way that you realize what your hopes and dreams are.
Perfect. So there you have it, folks. If you want to learn more about 5 ways to create your own predictability, please, you can get You Belong Here on Amazon.ca or Amazon.com. This has been our pleasure, and we look forward to talking with you again sometime soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.